Alright, so today I'm going to be talking about the system requirements for Far Cry 6 and just kind of simplifying them and helping you guys understand what they mean, and so you know if you are going to be able to run Far Cry 6. So before we get into the video, please give this video a like and subscribe if you are new here. And yeah, let's get into the video. And so the two websites I'm going to be kind of jumping back and forth between are this one right here, Game Debate. The reason I'm using their website and not like Ubisoft's website is because these guys right here do a way better job of giving you the full scoop on all the settings. And what do I mean by that? Well, on Ubisoft's website they say Far Cry 6 minimum system requirements 1080p 30 fps, but and it'll say ray tracing off, but it doesn't tell you the settings. Then you have to go to another page where it says like, okay, this was low settings, and it's just super confusing. But this website right here does a perfect job of it. So this is the website that I'm going to be using, along with this Twitter page right here. And I'm only going to be using this one for actually right now, and that is because it gives all of the like features right up here. And I'm gonna list those off right now. Far Cry 6 requires DirectX 12. It has uncapped frame rates, in-depth customization options, hybrid input and extended control customizations, multi-monitor and widescreen support, in-game benchmark for performance analysts, DirectX ray tracing or DXR, and AMD Fidelity XF super resolution support. Now Far Cry 6 does not support DLSS, which I don't know why. I think that's pretty stupid that they don't, because I mean, if it has ray tracing, you know, it's going to be very useful to have that performance enhancing DLSS to go right along with it. And yeah, back to this website right here, we're going to be starting off with the minimum system requirements, and then talking about these two right here, which are like the high and ultra setting recommendations with ray tracing off. And then I'll move into ray tracing on with like the super high resolution and high settings recommendation things. So yeah, first let's start off with the minimum system requirement. Now I'm not going to do all on the minimum system requirements. I'm just going to go right over them, and as you can see, it's showing mostly low end components, which is good to see, because for the minimum system requirements it's usually good to see the lowest tier possible, because that means the more people that would be able to play the game. Because I mean, I've never ran into this scenario because I've always had a pretty powerful computer. I mean, my first computer was, you know, it was, I'd say, middle of the road, but there's people out there that don't have powerful computers, and some games they might not be able to play. And it's really nice to see that Far Cry 6 has some very low system requirements, which is good. So alright, so I want to get some things out the way right off the bat. Windows 10, DirectX 12 or DX12, and a storage space of 60 gigabytes is going to stay the same throughout all the recommendation settings. So I'm only going to talk about them now, and I just did. So for the CPU, we have two 4-core CPUs, as to be expected, and RAM is 8 gigabytes in dual channel mode. What is dual channel mode? Well, it's pretty much you have two sticks of RAM. So if you have 8 gigs of RAM, that means if it's in dual channel mode, that means you have two 4 gig sticks. Now if you bought a pre-built, your computer might have came with one 8 gig stick. So if you want to check that, just look in your computer and look for the two RAM slots. If there's one stick, you're in single channel mode. If there's two, you're in dual channel mode. So then for GPUs, we have the GTX 960 and the RX 460. These both have 4 gigabytes of VRAM. Although the GTX 960 did come in a 2 gigabyte version. Although you do want the 4 gigabyte version, because that's what they recommend, 4 gigabytes. But yeah, now moving on to the recommended system requirements for a 1080p at 60 frames per second at high settings. For CPUs, we're looking at a Ryzen 5 Ryzen 5 3600X, which is a 6-core, 12-thread CPU. And then on the Intel side, we're going to see a Core i7 7700, which is a 4-core, 8-thread CPU. So the Ryzen CPU is definitely a bit more powerful, but they still recommend the Intel one, so it's still got to be good enough. So We moved up to 16 gigabytes of RAM in dual channel mode, so you have two 8 gig sticks. Then for GPU, we have a GTX 1080 and a RX Vega 64. These both have 8 gigs of VRAM, so this is quite a big jump from, you know, minimum to recommended system requirements for 1080p. Going from a 960 to a 1080, that's quite a big jump, but hey, that's to be expected. We're doubling the FPS and going to high settings. So moving on to recommended system requirements for 1440p 60 frames per second at ultra settings, which I feel like this is going to be where a lot of you guys are going to want your settings to be, because for a lot of you guys, I know ray tracing is just not going to be a viable option for getting good, if you want good frame rates. So we have ourselves a i7 9700K and a Ryzen 5 3600X. So they actually keep the AMD CPU the same, which I understand why. I mean, it's a very good CPU and it's still 6 core 12 thread, and this is a 8 core 8 thread CPU, which pretty much means that it does not support hyperthreading, which means hyperthreading means that it has double the threads as it does cores. So if it's a 6 core CPU, it'll have 12 threads if it supports hyperthreading, which that's fine. It doesn't need to support hyperthreading. It'll still run a game really good, so that's why I recommend it. So again, 16 gigabytes dual channel mode. Now we do have quite a big jump up in the GPU category, moving up to an RTX 2070 Super and an RX 5700 XT, which those are both very good, very powerful graphics cards. Although, and obviously anything really that's close to there, like if you have a RTX 2070, you're still going to get good frame rates. That doesn't have to be what they recommend. There's always other options that are really similar to their recommendation. So moving on to, oh, I forgot one thing. For the storage, it's a little bit different. You'll see now that it says 37 gigabyte HD textures, which is pretty much, you can download this extra add-on for the HD textures. It's 37 gigabytes. So just keep in mind that if you have a good enough system requirements like these, you should download that package. Get better textures. So alright, so these next two categories are for my RTX gamers out there. For anyone that has an RTX graphics card that is strong enough for these two system requirements right here. The first one is the recommended settings for 1440p 60 fps ultra settings and RTX turned on. So for the CPU category, we have an i5 10600K and an AMD Ryzen 5 5600X. And you might be wondering, why are we downgrading from a i7 to an i5? Well, that is because this i5 right here is one of the best i5s you can get. It's a 10600K, meaning it has 6 cores, 12 threads, and can be overclocked to close to 5 gigahertz. So it's a very strong CPU. And then the Ryzen 5 5600X is actually the same CPU that I have. It is 6 cores, 12 threads. It can be, and mine is currently overclocked to 4.5 gigahertz steady. And this chip right here for AMD also runs on their new Zen 3 architecture, which is just better and more efficient in pretty much every way than the Zen 2 architecture, which is what I think the Ryzen 5 3600X runs on. We're still sticking with dual channel mode, 16 gigabytes. We moved up to a RTX 3070 along with a AMD Radeon RX 6900 XT. So if you know your GPUs, you might notice that they're pairing a very powerful AMD GPU with a still very powerful but not top of the line NVIDIA GPU, and that is because remember, ray tracing is on right now, and ray tracing is obviously NVIDIA's, like, I don't know, their thing. They made it, so it obviously runs better on their cards that have their RT cores or ray tracing cores. So for AMD to keep up with NVIDIA when it comes to ray tracing, they need a way more powerful GPU than NVIDIA does. So that is why there's such a huge difference between GPUs there. This is actually a 16 gigabyte card right here, the 6900 XT. I think it is. I think it's 16 gigabytes, and this is only 8. So that just goes to show you. Alright, so last but not least, we have the system requirements for 4K 30 FPS ultra settings with ray tracing turned on. We have an i7 10700K along with a Ryzen 7 57 or 5800X, which these are both 8-core 16-thread GPU or CPUs, very strong CPUs. Yeah, just all around just great CPUs for gaming. Not sure what the overclocking is like on these, but still 16 gigabytes of dual channel mode RAM. And now we've moved up to an RTX 3080, and it's paired up with an Radeon RX 6800, which this has really confused me. I've tried to figure this out, but you may have noticed we're going from a 6900 XT to just a 6800. We're downgrading in GPUs, but increasing the GPU load. That makes no sense to me. I don't get it. So, I don't know. I honestly don't know. If you know why this has happened, comment down below, or it could just be a mistake on Ubisoft's end, because I would presume you need a more powerful GPU than the 6900 XT to, you know, keep up with the 3080. I don't know. I have no clue. But this was all of the features, graphics features that will be in Far Cry 6, and all the system requirements that you need to know for Far Cry 6. I hope you found this helpful. I hope it made it easier to understand. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, give it a like and subscribe if you are new here. Definitely means a lot. I will be posting more Far Cry 6 content, and just, yeah. I hope you have a terrific day, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.